Welcome to the Two Money Guys podcast. I am Rob, the middle-aged money man, along with Michael, your money geek. You can also find us at twomoneyguys.com. That's with the number 2, or twomoneyguys.com with the word. Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, and all of your favorite podcast apps. We have a great show for you today about seizing opportunities. We also have actor and filmmaker John Tague with us to discuss how he has seized the opportunities presented to him to be on such shows as Lucifer, The Blacklist, CSI Cyber, and more. But first, let's roll that intro. We were scouring the internet looking for articles about seizing opportunities, and we came across an article on 43bluedoors.com by Bonnie Truax entitled, Find Your Blue Door, How to Be Ready to Seize Opportunity, where she gives 5 steps to be ready to seize an opportunity that comes your way. We're going to discuss a couple of those steps now. We're not going to go over all 5, but we'll discuss a couple of them now. One of them being, don't give away your power. What she means here is you can't attribute your failures to the circumstances only, to the circumstances that surround that event only. In other words, you can't blame what happens on other people or other things that happened before it. Her example is, I don't have any money now because my car died, but I may have gone out to eat 3 times the previous week, or I may have spent money on a video game or something like that. That may be the reason you have no money. It may not necessarily be that your car died. Not to mention that I'm sure our friend Dave Ramsey would say you should have a fully funded emergency fund. Then you wouldn't be giving your power away if your car died, because you'd be in a great spot right now. What do you think, Michael?
I agree. I think we've all probably been in this situation at some point where we've blamed our failures on some situation we couldn't control, opposed to really looking into situations where maybe we could control them, but we made bad decisions, maybe spent a little more than we should or failed to save as much as we should. So, this really hit home for me. I think we're all probably a little guilty of this.
Oh, I definitely am. I know I blame what happens on everything but me. It is never my fault. Trust me. I mean, it's the cat's fault, the dog's fault, the sun's fault, the moon's fault. I mean, it could be anything but me. Trust me. I don't have any money. Well, were the kids spending my money? Is my wife spending my money? I had money yesterday. Where did it all go? Yeah, you look at my bank account, you can see what I spent my money on, and it's nothing that I really needed. I'm telling you that right now. So yeah, this definitely hit home with me too, because you just listen to other people talk, including yourself. If you had a tape recorder, I'm dating myself, tape recorder. If you had a recorder and you heard yourself, if something like this happened, and you could just count how many times that you blamed something or someone for the situation you're in, I mean, it would be ridiculous. If it was a drinking game, we'd be drunk 24 hours a day, wouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just one of those things. It's easier to blame things on things we can't control than it is to take responsibility from it. I don't even say that accusatory of people. I think it's like internally, I think it's like a defense mechanism we have. And I think it's really something that, you have to work through to get better at this and not be, kind of victim of it.
So how would this help us then seize opportunities that come our way? So if you free yourself, if you let go of the fact that it's other people's fault, and you finally come to grips with, hey, I'm taking blame for this. It's me. I'm going to step up to the plate. It's kind of freeing. And you then open yourself up to anything that comes along, because you're not only then just deflecting things, and you don't become so defensive, and you don't become so argumentative and wonder what's going on. You actually kind of open up and you say, hey, I know exactly what's going on. It's me. This is what I'm doing. This is what I need to do. And then when something finally comes up, you do want to take responsibility and action for it. And I think you're more prepared for that rather than, being so deflective all the time.
It is. And I think when you start taking responsibility for it and you start owning, kind of the mistakes that you make, then you'll better seek to avoid those mistakes. And it'll become easier to save because you will want to avoid making those mistakes.
Absolutely. All right. Another thing that Bonnie says in her article is take action that will free your life. She goes over financial freedom and emotional freedom. So what I'm thinking here is financial freedom. If you're free from debt, you don't have to worry about opportunities coming your way. I mean, if an opportunity comes your way and you want to go for it and you're financially free, say you're financially independent, you don't have to be financially independent, but if you are, that's great. That makes it even better. But even if you're free from debt, it frees you up to take these opportunities that come your way much easier than if you were drowning in debt and you just couldn't. It wasn't even an option. I mean, somebody comes to you and says, hey, I have an opportunity to franchise this company, or I have an opportunity for this side business or for this or that. And you can't because, a career opportunity comes along to change jobs and you just can't because you're paycheck to paycheck. Being financially free or financially independent would just turn things 180 degrees for you, don't you think?
I do. So, I think that this is, tremendously important. And I like that she ties back financial freedom to kind of being spiritually free. And I know like one thing for her that's really important is they do a lot of volunteer work. And so, when people are financially free, you're not a slave to lenders and you're not forced to borrow money. You can pursue, maybe work that you find more rewarding. You can volunteer, take advantage of opportunities, travel. So, this is something that I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And one of her examples, and I won't go into detail, but one of her examples is even when you go on vacation, being financially free lets you have better memories, better experiences, because you're not on that vacation worrying about money being so tight. You can have better experiences with your family. Even if something goes wrong, you're not tied down or strapped so bad that it ruins everything for you. So, not only does it let you seize the opportunities for career changes and so forth, but I mean, just vacation wise or time with the family, it allows you to enjoy that more because you're not worried about finances when you're spending time with people, family and friends. You can just relax and spend time with them and create memories. And that kind of ties to the emotional freedom as well. The emotional freedom goes along with that, where you need to continuously learn what you've done and how to overcome it. So this goes along with getting out of debt, because we're majority of a financial show. You need to know where you came from to get to where you want to be. So if you were in debt at one point, there's a reason you were there. To get out of debt, you have to figure out why you were there and how to get out, to no longer do what you were doing that put you there. Once you're out of debt, it's a completely different emotional and mental mindset. And you don't want to go back to the place you were when you were in debt. So being emotionally free as well as financially free, they go hand in hand, and it's just a completely different state of mind. What are your thoughts on that, Michael, as far as, this step here, I think is more of a creating memories and allowing you to relax and enjoy life and any opportunity that comes along kind of step, don't you think?
It is. And she gives an example there about where, she went on vacation and the car broke down and it didn't end up ruining the vacation. Financial freedom correlates very highly to emotional freedom.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So you can find that article again. That's by Bonnie Truex. It's at 43bluedoors.com. Go check it out if you want to read the entire article. And we are going to head into our interview. All right, we would now like to welcome the great actor, producer, director, and creator who has had roles in such television shows as Lucifer, The Blacklist, CSI Cyber, and General Hospital, as well as Hulu's Light as a Feather. He is also the lead actor and creator of the multi-award-winning web series The Rolling Soldier, which he also wrote and directed. Please welcome to the show, Mr. John Tague. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. Thanks, fellas. Thanks for that introduction. That's I sound a lot more important than I am.
Oh, don't ever say that. You're very. Those are some incredible roles on some incredible shows.
Oh, thank you.
I've watched some of those personally. My wife has watched many of those shows. So, could you give us a little background on yourself to start out with? I know that we went into some shows you were on, but can you give us a little background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm an East Coast guy. I grew up in New Jersey. I was born in Pennsylvania, though. I went to college hoping to study music and didn't really pan out, and I ended up falling in backwards into theater. This was in North Carolina at High Point University, and then I fell in love with it and decided to pursue it as a career. I moved to New York, studied with an amazing master teacher. His name's Terry Schreiber. I really cut my teeth in New York. I did a lot of theater. I did a lot of independent films, a lot of commercials and voiceover work, and a lot of soap opera work. Then from there, I had a nice little career going on there. I was paying the bills, and I wanted a bigger slice of the pie. So I decided to move to Los Angeles and pursue it a little bit harder and go for the bigger gigs. Yeah, and that's where I am now. I came to LA in 2000. I've been out here for 18 years. It's up and down. It's one of those feast and famine. And especially with the way things have been going lately, with runaway production, the work's been kind of hard to get, but I've been blessed. I've been pretty lucky lately. So that's pretty much where I am at the moment.
Awesome. The Rolling Soldier is awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Could you tell us this? Were you in the CIA? I mean, were you in the service? I mean,
I'd have to kill you.
You can kill Michael. That's okay.
No, it wasn't. Basically what the Rolling Soldier was. It started off as an experiment, really. I had taken a little time off of acting. I'd taken about 5 years off when my daughter was born. I was in a bad place. Things, not personally, but in a bad place as far as casting goes. I was a little bit too old to play certain roles, and I was too young to play certain roles. So I was in this weird gray area that happens to actors. And when my daughter turned 5, I thought, well, now's a good time to get back into it because I've got a little bit more experience behind me. My look is different from how it used to be, and so I thought I'd jump back in to start acting again. So much had changed over those 5 years, where the footage that I had on my reel from my previous jobs had become just so incredibly dated that I needed new footage. I wanted to be seen in a certain way. I wanted casting directors to see me in a certain way. So I decided to create this series called The Rolling Soldier. And the reason I did it was because I'm a big fan of spy thrillers, especially the spy thrillers of like the 70s, like The Day of the Jackal and All the President's Men and things like that. Those are movies that I really like. And I wanted to create a short kind of story about a guy who's a washed up assassin who wakes up from a 10-year coma to discover he's on the run. I thought it was a pretty fun idea for a show. And so what I did was I shot a pilot episode over a weekend with some friends. And we used real gear and good camera, and all the actors that were in the show are all pros, people that I've known for years. And, we busted our asses and made this cool little pilot episode. And when it was done and I showed it to people, everyone kept asking me, well, what's next? And I was like, I don't know. So I guess maybe I should start, writing more episodes. And what I ended up doing was I ended up creating 6 more episodes. And in total, it's 7 episodes. And it did really well. People really, really liked it. And I decided to start submitting it to WebFest festivals around the world, web series festivals, which I didn't know existed. I thought they were I had no idea what they were, but apparently it's a big thing now where a lot of creators and a lot of industry people go to these things now, and they're looking for shows and they're looking for talent, and web series is becoming a huge commodity. And I kind of jumped in at the right time. And my show did well. I ended up winning Best Drama at the New York City Web Fest. I won Best Thriller in Vancouver, Best Drama in Austin, Texas. It went to Dublin, Ireland, Hollywood. It went to Seoul, Korea. It was in Germany. It went all over the world, and it did really well. And from that footage alone, I was able to parlay it into more work. which got me roles on shows like The Blacklist and
What?
CSI Cyber, and more aligned with what I wanted to do. It really paid off. It was definitely the smartest thing I ever did. And if I had known that it would be this beneficial to me earlier on in my career, I would have done something similar to it. But when I was first starting out, we didn't have the technology that we have now. Everything was still being shot on film, and it was next to impossible to do. So, it took this long for me to figure it out, but it really, really paid off.
Yeah, and those shorts and short web series are becoming, hugely popular, particularly with, the millennials and some of the younger, Gen Xers and everything are really gravitating toward shorts and short movies and web-based series than even traditional movies and films.
Right. And I think it has a lot to do with, the short attention span and also the convenience of it being on your phone, where you can sit and just watch it on your phone. Although it is cool to see it projected on a big screen. But, web series are something that people can just watch on the subway, or they can watch on the bus or whatever, commuting, or they can knock it out real quick if it's good. What was interesting about
technology is good. I mean, there's young filmmakers, they're winning awards with movies shot on, iPhones.
Oh, totally. And, there's amazing filmmakers that are making web series, like amazing people, like incredible artists and cinematographers and technicians. It's like kind of like a sideways way into the industry. I think that web series is the new punk rock because it's all do it yourself. You can pretty much get away with anything. Don't be and do something stupid. Anybody can do anything now online, as far as creating content. So like that filmmaker in the middle of the country that doesn't have access to anybody in Hollywood can make something really cool if they put the time into it, and if they really, really make the effort.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask you is the web series, you use that as a way to update your footage.
Right.
Use that as a way,
Yeah, I basically used it as a way to kind of reinvent myself.
Right. And is that, the modern technology, rather than being on tape or I'm going to say an antiquated way of doing it, do you find that easier or more difficult to do it via the web? Because it's almost like an instant form of updating your reel and your resume almost, and getting it out there to potential directors and potential producers and studios, rather than having to go through the old school channels, right?
Yeah, totally. There's this unwritten law in the acting world. Don't contact directors, don't contact casting directors, let your agent do it. That's crap. If you're not out hustling and getting yourself in front of these people on your own, you're never going to get anywhere. In my experience, it paid off. But I also had a good product. It looked professional. Sometimes when people make things, it doesn't look as good. Like, I don't want to put anybody down because of their limitations. But if you're going to do something, do it really well. And yeah, that's it's the best way now, in my opinion, to have somebody see you and your work and figure out what kind of an artist you are, if it's something that they can align with and maybe cast you in later on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now that you have the web series and everything is going well, you have roles in other shows, what would you say is the one thing that you learned from being successful? I mean, if you had to take one thing that you learned along your journey and kind of glean that out, what would you say is the most important thing you learned from your successes and failures that you could probably tell somebody who's coming up in the business?
Wow. Hard work pays off.
There you go.
You got to work. You have to work hard. You can't expect somebody to do it for you. You can't expect, that magic phone call to come out of the blue and say, oh, you're cast now, and whatever it is. It just doesn't happen that way anymore. You've got to hustle as an actor. And you also have to start wearing different hats now. It's a completely different game from when I started off back in like the early 90s. Like now actors, they have to know their brand, and they have to know how to, be savvy with social media, and they have to create their own stuff now, which was never, like back in the 90s, that was not a thing. You couldn't do it. It was like you weren't allowed in that club. But now with the technology, it's right at your fingertips, and there is no excuse for any actor out there not to be creating something that can help them with their career. So hard work, man. Absolutely. Just work, work, work. And don't take no for an answer. That's the best advice I have.
We've talked to a few people in the industry, and they've kind of mentioned social media. Are you seeing social media playing a bigger role in casting and getting parts?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, think about it. Suppose you're a producer in a film and, you've got a choice between two actors, and they're both good, but one of them has, I don't know, 130,000 followers on Instagram. The other one has 500. It's a no-brainer because it's free advertising for that producer. Once that actor starts doing behind the scenes stuff with his camera or his phone, or, once the movie starts to come out or the TV show, he starts blasting it out. You're taking on their audience. So yeah, it's absolutely essential now for actors to be, active on social media. And for me, I'm a 48-year-old middle-aged white guy. It's hard. It's hard for me to collect lots of followers. But what's happened over the last couple of months is some of the work that I've done on some of the television shows like Lucifer and Light as a Feather. I've started to attract a lot of that fan base, which has been great. And they're really good people. And they help me and share my stuff, which is fantastic. As an actor, you've really got to be on top of your social media. I know, like, a lot of actors are introverts, and I was kind of in that box too, but you got to break out of that box and get out there. The other thing is, too, networking is something that I was never very good at either. And actually, the social media strategies that I've started following have applied to like in-person networking. So that's been kind of valuable to me.
Do you have a defined social media strategy? Do you have rhyme and reason for why you do what you do on social media?
I try to do something every day. Like for some reason, Twitter is better for me, and I think that has a lot to do with Lucifer. When Lucifer got canceled, there was a huge Save Lucifer campaign, and I kind of jumped on board and helped out with that. And then Netflix ended up picking it up, which is great. They're going to have a new slew of episodes on Netflix soon. I'll do something familiar in the morning. I have a morning thing where it's me and my coffee. It's just a way of, like, it'll be me, like, good morning. I got my coffee, check. I'm with my dogs, check. Going over scripts or whatever, ready to kill the day or whatever it is. And it's nice. People expect it now for me to say good morning to them when I jump on Twitter in the morning. So there's that. And then I take a lot of behind the scenes pictures and movies and stuff when I'm working on a project. I always ask first if I can, because a lot of times they don't want you doing it. And I just save that stuff and hold on to it. And I've got tons and tons of headshots that nobody's seen. So I'm constantly just kind of like, slightly pushing them out every now and then. And then I'll do something personal, that people can really relate to. And it's never anything political or anything like that. I tend to stay away from that. What I'll talk about is, the weather or my dogs or whatever's going on. Just kind of put me in it. I find that if you do more than like 4 or 5 posts, it gets lost. So what I do is I kind of do maybe 3 posts on each platform, and I'm kind of specific about the hashtags. I don't want to use a hashtag that's so popular that it gets lost in the wash. I like to use a hashtag that's in the mix, but doesn't have a lot of noise around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's smart.
I noticed too that on your site you use your vlog a lot. So, I mean, that's also nice. How do you think that plays into connecting with your fans?
That's funny you say that. I haven't done that in a while. I've been wanting to get back into doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed there hasn't been any very recent ones, but I noticed that they're very casual. I mean, they're usually you in your car.
Yeah, well, that's where I usually
about things.
I'm usually in my car. That's what we do out here. We're in our car all the time, and
not necessarily moving, I'm sure, but
no. Whenever I do one, I always pull over. I don't want to cause an accident. But I'm either on my way to an audition or a job, or coming back from a job or an audition. And I enjoyed doing them. I thought they were fun to do, and then I kind of got busy and it kind of just fell away. And I think I might start doing it again because people kind of dug it. And I wanted to keep it kind of specific for tips for actors like me who are trying to figure it out. Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. I'd like to start doing that again.
Not a problem. I mean, I watched them, And I enjoy them. I enjoy when people do a vlog like that and they're just casual and they just talk about what they're doing and everything else, because it really, brings them down to earth and you just connect with them in a certain way,
Yeah, yeah. It's a nice glimpse into like what it's really like. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, it's not easy. I wish it was as cool as, as I make it out to be on social media. But it's hard, man. It's like going on job interviews every single day. And then when you get the gig is, I mean, it's fun, but it's a lot of pressure, man. There's tons of money involved in making these television shows. If you think about it, each show probably costs close to $2 million.
Wow.
Roughly, I would say. Like shows heavy with special effects might be more. When you got that kind of money behind something, and then when you're on set, and then you have like literally 150 crew members running around you, and it's complete chaos, and then all of a sudden you're on camera, and it's like go time. It's stressful and it's hard, man. It's not easy at all, and people need to know that. I think it's something that people need to understand, that it's not all movie premieres and red carpets and cool parties. That's very rare for like the regular Joe like me out there.
It's real work and it's hard work, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy. It's a grind. But honest to God, it's the most fun. It's a fun gig and it's exciting and it's always different, which is cool, but it's also kind of in a lot of ways, it can be a little sad because you get real close to certain people like really fast in a very confined time period. And then when it's over, those people are gone and you never see them again. It can be hard.
As far as your professional career, what is one thing professionally that you are most proud of?
Well, besides The Rolling Soldier, I did some movies early on that never got seen, which is a shame. One of them was called Living and Dining, and that was with Maureen Stapleton. She's not with us anymore, but she was a legend. And I got to star opposite her in a movie, and that was really cool, but it never got released. I felt like my work in that film was really good. It was actually my first movie ever. It was the first feature film I was ever cast in.
So when you say it was never released, like that movie's just not out there any place for anybody to see?
It's not out. No, it never got a distribution deal. At the time, nobody wanted it. It's a drama that takes place in a resort town at a restaurant that's going out of business. I mean, that's a hard sell to begin with, but the cast was fantastic, and the movie it's a really good, heartfelt drama. And it's just a shame that nobody wanted it.
I don't want to bring back the emotion, but I mean, what does it feel like emotionally when you work hard on something like that and it never sees the light of day?
It's devastating.
I'm sure it can be.
I've done things that I cannot believe they got distributed. I don't want to mention them, but there's some out there that I'm just like, oh my God.
Everybody has those floating around out there somewhere.
But it's really heartbreaking when you put that much work and effort into something and nobody gets to see it. And that's what's kind of cool now about the internet and all these streaming services. Now things are being seen that normally wouldn't be seen. Unfortunately, that film will never be seen because there's a bunch of rights involved with the soundtrack, and there's a whole bunch of things going on with that film that it's too much of a headache for the producers, and they just decided, you know what, forget it. Even though it's Maureen Stapleton's last film, which would have been nice for, I guess, Maureen Stapleton fans to see.
Right.
You'd think they'd figure out some sort of way to put it on, video on demand or something.
Yeah, well, the problem is with the soundtrack. Oh. They used music that they didn't license, so it's a whole thing.
Nobody's getting royalties for that, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and that's the whole big thing that's really blown up the last couple of years, right? The music rights and royalties, and does this song sound like that song?
Oh, yeah, totally. The music industry is a completely other can of worms. The music industry's been in trouble since Napster,
Napster.
Here's a blast from the past.
Napster ruined everything.
So speaking of music, are we going to mention your Grateful Dead cover band, or is that going to be buried in the
past? No, I'm not ashamed of that at all, to be honest. When I was a kid in high school, I was 16 when that band started. We were called Sunsplash, and we were a Grateful Dead cover band, and we used to play around our town in New Jersey, and then we started playing in New York City and playing like Dead Nights and things like that all over the place. That was a really great experience being a part of that band. There was some really talented people in that band, and we had a lot of fun. It actually gave me the courage to be in front of people and perform. So when I started acting, it was it wasn't an easy transition, but it wasn't as painful as I thought it would be. I learned a lot of good lessons being in that band, and I was able to apply a lot of it into being an actor. And like that was a lot of hard work putting that band. So it kind of gave me a good work ethic right away.
Let's go. So what's your favorite Grateful Dead song?
Oh man, there's so many.
Is there a song that you like after a while you just got tired of playing?
Oh my God, yeah, Touch of Grey. That song drove me nuts.
Everybody requested that. That's like the Freebird of Grateful Dead songs.
Yeah, but like China Doll is a great song. War Fret, Help on the Way, Slipknot, Franklin's. That was always fun to play, and I still love hearing those songs. And I always put the Dead on at least once a month. I'll sit and I'll listen to like Europe '72 or something and enjoy it, and then I kind of put it away and go back to the other stuff that I like. It was funny because that band was in the '80s, and I was really into what the music scene was happening at the time. I was into bands like U2 and REM and the Police and The Cure and all the bands that were in England at the time. And we did a show where we would play covers from those bands, but we would also, the Grateful Dead show was the thing that everybody wanted. It was fun playing in that band.
And it prepared you to be in front of an audience, which was good.
Yeah. Especially doing theater, which is a lot harder than doing a film. So yeah, playing live music helped me figure out how to live on stage as an actor.
So that's music. Do you have any books, any authors you're digging right now? Any books you'd recommend to people?
You know what? I just read a really cool book called Here, There, and Everywhere. It's a book about Jeff Emmerich, who was the engineer on all the Beatles albums from Revolver to Abbey Road. And George Martin basically created the Beatles sound. And reading that book was really cool. He wrote the book himself. But as far as other authors go, I've always loved Stephen King. Like the playwrights are some of my favorite authors, like Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, Eugene O'Neill. Those are the writers that I really love. And I've always loved Steinbeck. But as far as contemporary writers go, it's funny. I don't really read a lot of the contemporary stuff out there, but I will read like self-help books. I like Tim Ferriss, and I like digging into like, biohacking and life hacking. I think that stuff's fun.
Nice. If you're going to make a play into a movie, what would it be?
God, I don't know. I mean, anything that Arthur Miller did could be easily turned into a film today and still have resonance to it because of the way things are in the world. He really tapped into the working class struggle, and he was a great playwright. What would be a really good play to turn into a film right now would be Enemy of the People, which is a play by Henrik Ibsen. Arthur Miller did a translation of it, and that would make a great play because it's about a resort town, another resort town. It's about a resort town who has natural springs that people go to, and they discover that the springs are poisoned, but the town doesn't want to let anybody know because it'll kill the town with tourism. I think that'd be a really topical play for the moment to be made into a film.
Yeah. Do you have any upcoming projects you want to discuss today?
Well, let's see. You can catch me on Light as a Feather on Hulu. That's running right now. It's been out for, I think, 2 weeks now, and it's doing really well. The other thing I'm involved with right now is a film called The Reservation, which is a horror film that takes place out in the California wilderness. It's about a cursed Native American artifact, and these a survivalist and 4 archaeologists go looking for it, and madness ensues the closer they get to it. I'm looking forward to finishing that film. We've started back a little while ago, and we're coming back around to pick up stuff that we still need to do. And we got a couple more days of shooting of that film for sure. But I'm looking forward to getting in there and doing that film again. Plus, I've had the same haircut for that film for the last 4 months. I'm ready to kind of move on to a different hairstyle.
I can imagine that's tough, having to have the same look for a movie and then change it again and change it again.
That's what's hard about making independent films, where, scheduling, unless you can really block off like, a good 2.5 to 3 weeks of shooting, a lot of these films are spread out over a year, and it can be really tough with continuity. So yeah, I'm rocking this haircut until it's over.
So how do you do that? I mean, I didn't really think about that, but I mean, that would be really hard.
Yeah, well, it's actually kind of worked in my advantage, because a lot of the characters I play are kind of intense people, and my haircut at the moment is a little bit intense. So it's actually gotten me work, which has been nice.
So what would happen, for example, if in the middle of filming one movie, you had an opportunity to do something else and they wanted your hair, maybe styled a different way?
Well, whichever job pays more.
Oh, really?
Is the one. That's really the bottom line. Here's a prime example for this film, The Reservation. I had planned on having a really intense kind of like military haircut, with a full beard, because I play a survivalist. But 2 days before we started shooting, I was called in to audition for a huge feature film where they wanted me completely clean cut. So I had to shave my beard off, which took me, about a month to grow, and went into the audition. I did well at the audition, but then I had showed up on set 2 days later to shoot this horror film with just a little stubble, and the guy's looking at me like, "What happened?" But I had to tell him, like, "Hey, man, I had another opportunity, and I couldn't blow it with facial hair." It's funny, yeah, but it's a thing. It's a thing that we got to work, think about. There are so many harder things in life that people are doing, but me worrying about my beard seems kind of insignificant, but it's a funny thing.
Everybody else has to juggle one job. You have to juggle like 3.
Yeah. And while I'm juggling those 3 jobs, I'm out auditioning, doing like job interviews all week long for other jobs.
It's like the ultimate side hustle. I mean, you have like your main hustles are our side hustles,
Yeah. And it's exhausting. Wow. It takes a lot of energy, and you've got to be a little bit crazy to have the constant rejection. One of my good friends, his name's Matt Del Negro. He has a podcast that's really actually pretty good. He has this thing called 10,000 No's, and that's basically what it is. It's like, what is it, the Malcolm Gladwell, you become a master after doing something 10,000 times? Yeah, it's the 10,000 No's. You become a master of ignoring it. It still hurts sometimes, like I was cast on a TV show. I found out I was pinned. There's a thing that in the industry where they pin you, which means you're being heavily considered, and then they decide whether or not they want to keep you. And at the last minute, they pulled the pin on me, and I lost the part. So, that was hard. But again, it's part of you. Just got to roll with it and just get on with the next one.
Get a thick skin. Yeah, you have to have a thick skin in that industry, I imagine.
Yeah, it's the people I admire the most are the women. They've got it way harder than the guys do. They're out there busting their asses just as hard as everybody else.
Yeah.
The stuff that they have to put up with, I'm sure it still happens, but, with the way things are, with the Harvey Weinstein and the whole, and then, Kevin Spacey and all that, it's definitely changed the industry, and people they have a new attitude about things, and I can feel it. And if, I see it, and it's a really good thing, but it's still very difficult for the women. I tip my hat to them.
Absolutely. So where can everybody find you on social media these days?
Yes. My social media. You can find me on Instagram at John J Tague. So that's at JOHNJTAGUE. And the same handle is good for Twitter. So that's again at John J Tague. And you can find me on Facebook. You just look me up. You'll find me. Also, you can watch The Rolling Soldier on YouTube. I would really appreciate any kind of feedback anybody has on that. I love hearing from people. So if you watch the show and you like it, leave a little note. And other than that, and my website, JohnTagueActor.com. And I think that covers those bases, right?
And we will have all of that information in the show notes.
Awesome.
So everybody can find you.
Great. Thank you.
Michael, do you have anything else?
Yeah. So we need to do our geeky question.
Oh, excellent. Great.
Yes, the geeky question.
If you're going to redo right now the new thing is, Hollywood's remaking everything.
Yeah,
so if
yeah.
you're going to remake a Hollywood, 70s spy movie, what would it be?
Oof. Oh man, they're so good. I feel like I wouldn't want to touch them. Well, I think Day of the Jackal could be remade, but I think it was remade, wasn't it? Was it Colin? No, it was. I think it was Richard Gere. I think it was a film called Jackal.
It was Richard Gere, I think, was Day of the Jackal, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it followed the same story that the original Day of the Jackals had, but I would do a remake of that because I feel like it could be really good. The way the world is at the moment, I feel like it's topical. Or maybe like 3 Days of the Condor or something like that.
Okay.
I like both those. I have no problem with either of those.
Watch all those movies again. Yeah, man.
I have no problem with either of those.
So do you have opinions on the remake thing? Because they're remaking all these movies, and almost every
I think
fortunate enough to talk to has kind of told us like they wouldn't want to touch it, older work. They had too much for it. So
I think like a reimagining of something is okay. Like here's a prime example. I don't know if you guys saw. Remember when Battlestar Galactica was on Sci-Fi Channel?
Yeah, great.
Remember how good that was?
It was awesome.
It was a million times better than the original. And I like the original, but it was a million times better. And because it was reimagined. I just heard that plans for the $6 Million Man film fell apart, which I'm fine with because I think it should be left alone. Like something iconic like that needs to be left alone. But I think with like lesser known titles, you can do a really good remake. Because I think those earlier films, they had a great idea, but they didn't have the technology to execute. If I was to make a fantasy remake, I would absolutely 100% remake Beastmaster. That would be awesome. If they added some comedy to it, I think it would be just amazing. Like I could just see Will Ferrell in that film, but like have somebody
Will Ferrell in anything.
have somebody else, Like I think it'd be great. Like I think that would be a lot of fun.
Who would Will Ferrell play?
He wouldn't play the Beastmaster. He'd be some like weird guy he picks up along the way on his journey or something.
Yeah, who would be the Beastmaster?
Well, I think The Rock is busy. That guy does every movie ever made. Nobody's working harder than that guy. Well, maybe Tom Cruise, but The Rock works. That guy works his ass off. Who would I have? It'd have to be somebody like, I don't know. You'd have to put somebody like Jason Momoa or something.
It would have to be either somebody from Game of Thrones or a professional wrestler.
Right. That's how it'd have to be. But, if they spend a bunch of money on it and really, if they get a good script with, like a really good story, I think it'd be so much fun to remake that. That's what I think. As far as remakes go, I like reimagine things better than I like a faithful remake.
Yeah, I think so. Because when it's reimagined, it doesn't take away from the original. It's not like they're saying the original never happened. It's just, it enhances the world or whatever.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Thank you very much for spending time with us today. We appreciate you dropping by, John. We definitely look forward to seeing you in some more great roles and possibly speaking with you again in the future. So definitely appreciate you coming by. My pleasure, fellas. Thank you so much. All right, it's time for the listener question. Listener question today is about mortgages and the stock market, stock market's been a hot subject lately. Should I pay off my mortgage or invest the money instead? The listener asks, if I have excess cash, should I keep paying down the mortgage every month or should I invest in the stock market? Well, with the downturn of the stock market, everybody's kind of panicking, but my opinion, I'm just going to give you a general view of my opinion. Given the choice, always invest your money. The stock market to me is always a long-term game, and it's always a marathon. It's never a sprint. I'm going to let Michael handle this real quick, but that's my general opinion. So what do you think, Michael?
Okay, I'm going to put my advising cap on here for a moment.
What's your advising cap look like? Is it a newspaper? Is it aluminum foil? What do you got?
It's aluminum foil.
Oh, cool. Okay, we're calling aliens too.
Yeah, it's really nice. The first thing is, obviously, because we don't know everything about the guy's situation, the first thing I would do is say you should do a budget, make sure you have an emergency fund. You should have an emergency fund before you even consider investing or paying down extra on loans. Make sure you have adequate cash reserves. Then the next thing I would suggest is before you make this decision, do a tax budget and model out your tax return and find out what your taxable situation is going to be. There's a lot of tax incentives for contributing money to 401ks and health savings accounts and accounts of that nature. And so you may find that before you start paying down your mortgage or your debt, you're actually better off doing a little bit of tax planning, because it might increase the amount of money you get back as a refund, or it may decrease what you have to pay in at tax time. So then once you've optimized your tax plan, you have an emergency fund, then the question becomes, should you pay down the mortgage or should you invest? And what you have to consider there is you have to consider what the mortgage rate would be on the interest. And then also you have to consider what your expected rate of returns are in the stock market. But you have to adjust for taxes, because anything you earn in the stock market is obviously going to be taxable. And you also have to consider your risk preferences. If, risking your money, makes you uneasy, then you're probably better off paying down the mortgage. However, if you're young and you think, well, I think the market's going to go up over time, and, you think there's dips in the markets and you want to take advantage of them, and you're comfortable with the risk, then at these low interest rates, you're probably better off investing.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking is, what kind of accessibility does he want with this money? Does he want the money in there short term? Does he want access to the money after a certain amount of time? I'm kind of looking at this from a different point of view. He wants to pay off the mortgage, and that's fine. Once you pay off the mortgage, is the purpose of paying off the mortgage just to become debt-free? Is it to have more money to do something else with? What purpose does it serve other than to get the mortgage out of the way? If it serves a purpose of having the excess money readily available, then you may want to look at not investing it, or investing it in the short term to get your money back. But that's really not the plan for investing. Investing should be long term. I mean, if you want to max out your 401k, you want to definitely, what Michael said is look at your risk assessment. If you're not comfortable with investing and you're not comfortable with the ups and downs in the market, then you should definitely go see a professional in the first place before you invest. And you should definitely look at your tax implications. But yeah, you definitely need to look at why you're doing both. Why do you want to pay off your mortgage, and why would you want to invest? It's just, you need to look at the why, in my opinion. I'm kind of looking at this a little different than you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of variables. And this is a situation that where, when someone's not comfortable with it, and it's perfectly possible for people to, kind of DIY their own investments and the management, everything. But this is a great thing sometimes to talk about a financial professional with, because there's so much to consider here. You have to consider the risk, you have to consider cash flow, you have to consider the tax planning. And it's not simply just a situation of what does the math say. In a lot of situations, saving sooner typically beats out saving more in the future, particularly if there's a 401k match or tax advantages. He could be potentially giving up years of employer matching on 401k contributions to try to pay down the debt faster, and it could end up being more costly in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah, he needs to look at what he's going to need in the future as opposed to what he's going to need in the short term as far as retirement goes. Again, we don't know all the variables. We don't know what his 401k looks like at this point. We don't know what his savings looks like at this point. All we know is he says he has a little bit of excess cash. He could either put money on his mortgage or he could invest it. We don't know what he's looking to invest at. We don't know what his risk assessment is. We don't know what his background is. So this is really difficult to answer this question.
It is. And I would say, too, that the inverse of this is kind of happening right now, where there's a lot of people over the last several years, because the stock market's been so strong the last several years, that they made the decision to invest opposed to paying off debt. And particularly with mortgages, interest rates are quite low right now, but there's a lot of people even that chose to invest instead of paying on student loans. And a lot of the student loans are actually very high interest rates. Some of those interest rates could be in the 6s and 7s. And so one thing right now with the stock market starting to turn the other way, we might be going into a correction. This could be a momentary tip, or it might be a long-term correction. We just don't know. But if someone has been investing opposed to paying off high interest debt, now might be the time, well, really probably 3 months ago would have been the time
exactly
to sit down and start reconsidering that. maybe they should take the money off the table, or at least some of the gains off the table, off the stock market, before it loses more, and pay off some of that high interest rate debt.
Yeah. At this point, we can't have a solid answer for you. It really depends on how much risk you're willing to take on and what your future goals are. Today's show was on seizing opportunities. So what we're learning is to prepare yourself for any upcoming opportunity. You should always have an emergency fund in place. You should always have your finances in order for any kind of opportunity that comes along. The financial freedom that we talked about in that 43bluedoors.com article is very important to opening yourself up for opportunities and any opportunity that presents itself. It just makes it a lot easier to grab those opportunities. Another takeaway from this is going to be discover new paths and create opportunities. When we talked to John Tague, he had to change things. His reel was becoming old. He went from old camera techniques and old tape, and he had to go to the web. He went to the web. He went to new techniques of doing things, and it worked out for him. He got new roles. He appealed to the casting agents in a new way, and it really worked out for him. So he actually created opportunities for himself by being proactive, and that is an amazing thing to do. You sometimes can't just wait for opportunities to come to you. You have to create your own opportunities. Another thing is don't pass up on any opportunity that presents itself. Sometimes opportunities come to you and they don't just smack you in the face and say, hey, I'm an opportunity. You need to look for them. So don't look away when an opportunity comes to you. If an opportunity comes to you or anything that looks good or looks like it's going to be beneficial to you in some way, take advantage of that. Don't be afraid to grab that opportunity and run with it. What are your takeaways on this, Michael?
I agree. I think it's really about, not saying no. So you have to kind of say yes and, open yourself to take advantage of opportunities, and you need to prepare yourself so you can take advantage of those opportunities. So that means getting your finances in order. That means, having an emergency fund and having a little bit of cash. So if the market's down, you can maybe, buy some investments at really good prices or take advantage of once in a lifetime kind of opportunities. A lot of those opportunities present themselves if you've prepared for it.
Absolutely. That's one big thing is opportunities rarely come to people who just sit back and wait. You'd be surprised if you're prepared and you're ready. You can recognize opportunities so much easier than if you just sit back and try to wait for them to show up.
Yeah, and act on them.
And act on them, absolutely, because you'll have the ability to act on them because you won't have the baggage, you won't have the fear, you won't be tied down, you'll be able to act on them. And that's exactly right. I think we definitely agree on that, Michael. It's not very often, but we agree on that. We definitely agree on that.
We do.
And it's been a great show. We'd like to thank John Tague for sitting down with us today. It was an incredible interview.
I agree with that as well.
You agree with that as well? Awesome. And we are the Two Money Guys. You can find us at twomoneyguys.com. You can find us on Twitter at 2moneyguys. And we will see you again.